Vikings episode 3 is out and progressing really nicely, and from the preview we can see that episode 4 is going to have a whole bunch of new stuff in it as well. But before we get into the preview breakdown, let's review episode 1 and 2. So Sigurd is truly dead, and yet again we see that historical events are more like general guidelines. Though don't worry, Ivar is really sad about the whole thing, and is overcome with everlasting grief. Sweet as, I think we're done here. We'll call that a night, right? I'm just gonna scoot out of here. Totally bummed out about this whole killing him thing. Definitely sad. Really bummed out, dude. So over with the English, we've got this new fellow that shows up, Heckman. But he does not like the look of the place. So they look round and they find King Lothbrok at the bottom of a barrel of rum, like we normally find him in the show. So back at the Viking camp, King Harald's better half is heading out with Bjorn to the Mediterranean. And hopefully this time they actually stay there for a while. Oh, and Floki is throwing himself into the sea. Over in the middle of a swamp, Adolf and finally Alfred is chilling out, hiding from the Norsemen. This here is actually a really awesome connection to a show called Last Kingdom, another great show set in the same time period but slightly later on, where Alfred hides in these swamps to get away from the Northmen during his reign when Wessex forces are pushed back. He also has a very similar regathering of his troops, emerging out of the swamps, ready to take back the kingdoms that have been lost so far. Oh, and Floki's still chilling on a boat. So King Harald shows up, and Lagertha's all like, "You expecting someone else? You're actually I was ordering a Rising Up combo pack with a free Catachat. Should be under the name One True King of All Norway." And then shit turns creepy real fast. First, Lagertha tries experimenting with a bit of BDSM, but gives up and goes for the classic old rape, you know? It's really in fashion this time of the year. And yeah, Floki's still on a boat. But tensions haven't died down with our trio of Ragnar's sons. After talking, Ubbe and Vikings confront Ivar and be like, "You really have to stop wasting all your money on tattoos, Ivar. But they're really good, you wanna see?" "No one wants to see your tattoos, Ivar. They're getting ridiculous. You know, why would I ever think I can do anything to express myself freely? You're really stifling my creative processes, you know?" Oh, and Floki discovered a new country after drifting through a raging storm. Or something.
"I am your king! I'm the god!"
"Forgive me, sire. King of kings."
So here we can see that King Aethelwood was really unhappy of how Heckman rejected the Lothbrok brothers. Clearly he wanted to do peace and make a broker with them, where that wasn't even on the table for Heckman. He was cleansing England of his plague against his god and religion, and he was going to do it at any cost, where King Aethelwood was more focused on looking after his kingdom, his people, having peace and stability. The reason Heckman probably did this without telling him in the first place was to force him to a position where now he has to fight the Vikings because he's rejected them off, shamed them and everything, so he's going to have to fight the Vikings regardless now. Though if this conflict does intensify over the next few episodes, I would put my money on Heckman taking more control of the men and more control of the army, as it's a lot more easy to inspire fear and hatred towards others than it is to bring peace and forgiveness for those who have especially done lots of atrocities to your family, kin and friends. So that dynamic between the two of them will be something really cool to look forward to in the next few episodes.
Ubbe treated me like his little faithful dog. I am no one's dog. Woof woof.
Yet again, we see more of a rift between two allies. This civil war theme, this splitting of allies and friends and kin, is something really big throughout this whole season, and will definitely continue into the next episode. They want Lagertha and Ubbe and Ivar and Vikings and Heckman and Adolf to grow apart, to make conflict, for this entire civil uprising to happen between all these camps, to really reflect the unloyal, power-grabbing mindsets a lot of people had in that time period. Vikings so far has done this theme really well throughout their other seasons with Roller and Ragnar, but now they're moving on to these new characters as they're being phased out. So clearly Ivar's not going to give Vikings a break for joining him. He's definitely going to be very wary of him being independent because he doesn't want him to try and take power, because he technically still is an older brother. He doesn't like this new independence because he's making his mark on the world, and anything that Vikings does will be kind of overshadowing him. So there's definitely going to be a lot more conflict between those two characters.
How lucky we are the gods gave us this opportunity. For what lies ahead are new cities, worlds, people and places.
Yes, finally some cool Mediterranean stuff. One, it looks like Bjorn's taken the advice of that person we saw previously in the episode 3, and he's gone in with a small band and a few ships pretending to be traders. Now, we haven't been formally introduced into this character here, but we see him quite a lot in these little snippets here. We see him right here on the horse next to Bjorn, so he is quite important, and we'll get to know him a bit more. It's possible he was one of the people taken back from their first raid, and that's how Bjorn's learned more about the Mediterranean and where he should go this time. This place definitely has more soldiers, wealth, power, and probably more influence in the Mediterranean. This means if Bjorn wants to raid it later on, he'll take a lot more forces, and if they get into any trouble while they're there, it's going to be quite hard for them to defend themselves, especially with limited armor and weapons and a lot smaller crew. But from this guy putting out his hands in this welcoming gesture, they definitely accept him as traders at least at first, and then this woman here is probably the generic plotline where a princess comes down, reveals some problem or plot or coup that's happening later on, asks for the crazy adventurous traveler to help her out and save the kingdom. But you never know, they could avoid those tropes and go for a really creative and awesome storyline.
I will support you against Ivar and Fitzek if you agreed to support me against King Harold.
That would make me an ally of my mother's killer.
I know.
So definitely we're going to get this kind of agreement and negotiation between Ubbe, who is really at a low point right now, and Lagertha, who needs support. So we know from the seer that there's a prophecy that Lagertha will die by the hands of a son of Ragnar. And there's been lots of theories about which son this would be and why. And a lot of people have been pointing between either Team Ivar for this or Ubbe. Now the Ubbe theory is actually really interesting. It mirrors quite a lot what Lagertha did with Earl Haraldson. It's possible he joins with her, combines his forces, supports her, even falls in love with her. And then when we think they've defeated King Harold, pushed him back, when victory is almost there, he will finally redeem his mother's deaths by killing her in a very Viking way. Something that she will be okay with and accept because of their traditions, how she's done it in the past, and their love. Super poetic way to put her out, a really interesting way to put her out that mirrors what we've seen in previous seasons. That would be really cool. But there's a lot more theories about exactly how that would be done. Also a lot of stuff about Ivar and how he's just going to straight up kill her. So I will try to do the video on that because you guys did poll saying that you want theory videos. So I'll be working on that as well alongside of these videos.
Of course I have a plan. Let them suffer more dismay, until only creatures of rags and bones wander the streets of York. Then we attack. We are the wrath of God.
So the English aren't done trying to take York yet. They pulled out with quite a number of their forces still alive, and Hageman's pretty determined to push them out before they become too big of a threat. From what we see so far, it may be that Ivar has moved out his forces before they come in. They find an empty village with a nice gift there, probably some dead monks, or people, something stacked up on heads, something really grotesque and Ivarish. So sadly we may not get the brilliant battle that we got last episode, but it should still be a really interesting character development episode as people start forming their alliances and agreements a bit more solid than we had in the previous episodes. Thanks for watching this video. I'm going to be trying to make my Vikings content more stable and consistent for the rest of the season, so hopefully you guys can subscribe, check out my Vikings content, and all that awesome stuff. So far, history hasn't let us down in the way that they've carried the story forward without Ragnar, and looks to be a brilliant season.